Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Sunderer's Clarion. The stars decree, the covenant demands. In whispers we govern, through the elements we obscure. In static we command, in nightmares we pursue. We are earth and air, we are fire and water. We are the remembered, we are the returned. We are the whispers, in silence we thrive. Today's rendition of astrological interpretations is going to be brought to you through an allegory of the Trumpets of Judgement, with the crimson voice as Mars concucts Uranus. We've got the Mars concucts Uranus in the 8th house, describing a scenario where disruptive forces force a reckoning with what is hidden, shared, and psychologically suppressed. The concucts here represents an awkward, uneasy connection, ensuring that the judgment feels unsettling and unbalanced. The 8th house here is the domain of death, rebirth, secrets, debt, and collective trauma. This is providing the stage for this dramatic upheaval that's upon us. Now, the allegorical context here is a tale beginning not with a heavenly army, but with an underlying structural flaw, a fundamental cosmic misalignment. The furious, impatient energy of Mars here is going to be the war-like trumpet call. This is connected to the rebellious, shocking, and erratic energy of Uranus, the sudden blast. It's kind of like the feds beating down your door. Boom! This is a way that creates a non-unsettling tension in the air. With this concucts, a relationship of imbalance is viewed. The action of the trumpet blast, which is Mars, is triggered by the nervous, rebellious, and shocking energy of Uranus in a way that feels fundamentally off and kind of unavoidable, if you will. It's like a impending doom, if you will. The stage for this reckoning is set in the 8th house, which is the metaphorical underworld where secrets, shared burdens, and past betrayals reside. Now, the 7 trumpets of judgment in this aspect are leading us to a judgment that unfolds not as a single cataclysm, but as a series of disturbing, unsettling, and ultimately transformative events. The first trumpet is going to be the betrayal of the shared well. The first trumpet blows, and it reveals a deep-seated corruption in a communal wellspring of resources. The 8th house governs shared finances, inheritances, and joint ventures. Under this specific concucts, a sudden, shocking event, which is Uranus, exposes a hidden truth about a business partner, a financial investment, or a legacy that was built on rather unsteady grounds. Now, the blast reveals that the shared wealth was not what it seemed, and the righteous anger of Mars, of the affected parties, demands immediate reckoning. The resulting fire and hail destroys the green grass of trust and the trees of shared foundations, leaving behind a bitter, scorched landscape. So, if this was a tree person, on the top of the tree, this is a pseudo fire igniting underneath, crumbling that foundation from right underneath their feet. The second trumpet is going to be the collapse of the collective sea. SEA. The second blast is even more shocking. It symbolizes the setting and catastrophic collapse of a shared secret or a deeply held psychological agreement. With the 8th house, this deals with secrets and the erratic energy of Uranus detonating a scandal that was very long ago buried. A great mountain ablaze with fire, if you will, a volcano almost, is cast into the collective sea of shared psychological space. A third of the sea life, the collective illusions and emotional agreements, perish. This is where death is prevalent among us, for attempting to contain something that should have never really been contained. A third of the ships here, the alliances, if you will, and the partnerships built on falsehoods, are annihilated, absolutely obliterated, destroyed, thrown out the window, starting brand new. With the third trumpet, we got the wormwood of the psyche. This trumpet sounds with a bitter, unsettling note. It reveals the psychological poison hidden beneath the surface of a seemingly pure spiritual or intellectual belief system, the 9th house, which is the opposite and therefore related to the 8th. Now, the erratic Mars-Uranus energy here brings a crisis to a belief system that was meant to be healing. A great star named, we'll call them Wormwood, falls upon the rivers and springs of water, causing them to turn bitter. This represents the realization that the source of spiritual nourishment or psychological guidance was corrupted by hidden motives or unresolved traumas, poisoning the very foundation of their beliefs. With the fourth trumpet, the dimming of the false sun, the fourth blast focuses on a figure of public power or a false authority. This person who once shone like the sun is suddenly exposed by a shocking revelation. The third of the sun is struck and its light is diminished entirely. This could allegorically describe the downfall of a charismatic leader who built their authority on false premises or exploited their followers' psychological vulnerabilities. This is false empresses, fake cult leaders, fake politicians, fake people who lead and have blind followers only to have it blown up in their face in the very near future. The judgment here is the revelation that the perceived source of light was not what it seemed, leaving the people in a frightening new darkness. This is when we truly embody light. We are always emanating light. We don't drain others' light because we contain our own natural star aura. Now, the enduring echo of the judgment here, the final three trumpets remain to be blown, representing the whoa, 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 that kind of still hangs in the air. It's like a lingering, can't quite put your finger on it, but you know it's there. The allegory reminds us that the reckoning initiated by the Mars Quincux Uranus in the 8th house is not a one-time event. It is going to be a domino effect on a spiral that just kind of works its way to the top. It's an ongoing and settling process that forces individuals and groups to confront the uncomfortable truths that they have tried to bury, whether it be in the yard, at somebody else's house, internationally in a bank account that don't belong to you, whatever. The trumpets here are a constant reminder that reckless action combined with repressed secrets will inevitably lead to a chaotic and deeply transformative reckoning. Now, with the harbinger of the end of times, we have the Mars Quincux Neptune. The Mars Quincux Neptune in the 9th house here describes a reckoning born of ideological and moral corruption. The Quincux creates a difficult, unsettling connection, ensuring that the judgment feels disorienting and disingenuous. The 9th house, ruling higher beliefs, higher authority, real authority, foreign lands, truth, and domain where this corruptive energy manifests, creating a judgment that not only weaponizes faith, ideology, and idealism. Now, the stage here for this judgment is the high tower of belief in foreign ideals, the 9th house, or the 9th circuit, whatever. The conflict is not a righteous war, but a corrosive one, where forceful action, being Mars, is uncomfortably linked to the deceit and the illusion played by Neptune and the encircling stars. The Quincux is the cosmic flaw, the unstable foundation that causes a subtle, festering wound in the very fabric of truth. Now, the Mars-Neptune energy signifies a spiritual warrior who is fighting for a cause that is based on lies or delusion. The trumpets are not clarions of truth, but muffled horns that distort and twist what is real. The 7 trumpets of judgment here, the first one's going to be the fire of the false crusade. The first trumpet blows, not with a clear call to arms, but with a misleading cry of a righteous crusade. We'll call it a witch hunt, if you will. A great ideological fire burns, consuming a third of the foundational beliefs and spreading confusion. This is the moral outrage of Mars, fueled by the distorted vision of Neptune. The ring, or organization, uses a righteous cause. We'll call it Christianity as a reference. Like saving the world or defending a sacred truth. Kill the evil, kill the witch, kill the demon. as a pretext for aggressive action or lead by illusion. Now, the fire and hail mixed with the blood here from biblical imagery, to put it into perspective, is going to be the moral destruction and false martyrdom created by this crusade. The judgment here is the public reckoning with the discovery that the movement's mission was built on manipulation. The second trumpet is going to be the idol of false truth. The second blast sounds, and a great mountain burning with fire is thrown into the sea of collective consciousness again. This mountain here is a charismatic leader, or a false messiah in this specific context. A high-minded figure of the ninth house leading a large group of people. We'll call it a covenant. The fire of their zeal and their passionate rhetoric burn brightly, but they are based on a toxic mix of aggression and delusion. A third of the sea becomes blood, as the leader's ideology poisons the collective mind and destroys relationships, usually through obsession and just obsession. We'll just leave it at obsession. It's always a self-sabotaging agenda at that point. A third of the ships here, now the movement institutions and the schools built on this false truth are going to be destroyed. But the third trumpet coming in, the wormwood of the sacred texts. The third trumpet carries the most bitter judgment of all. A great star blazing like a torch falls, not from the clean sky, but from the tainted space of disordered ideals. The star is the corrupting force that poisons the rivers and the springs of water, the very source of spiritual and philosophical nourishment. This could represent a twisted interpretation of a sacred text or the perversion of a philosophical system. The King Kux ensures this corruption feels unnerving and insidious at its core, leaving a lasting bitterness. The judgment is going to be the realization that the supposed source of divine truth was in fact the source of a deeply painful lie. This is where somebody runs a campaign and convinces a community at large of one thing, only to find out later on that that entire narrative was ran on total deception. The fourth trumpet here is going to be the eclipse of honest guidance. The fourth blast causes a dimming of the false light. A third of the sun, moon, and the stars are struck, meaning a third of the spiritual and moral authority figures are exposed for their corruption. Their guiding light is diminished, leaving people in moral confusion and darkness. This judgment is the public scandal that exposes the hypocrisy of religious leaders, unethical academics, or fraudulent gurus who once shone brightly but were ultimately driven by self-serving motives, kind of like what we're seeing now in the news. The enduring echo of judgment within this story is going to be the final three trumpets. Woe, woe, woe. That still hang in the air, serving as a reminder that the reckoning initiated by Mars, King Kux, Neptune in the ninth house is not a simple affair by any means. It's an ongoing, confusing, and unsettling process that forces a deep confrontation with what is truly righteous and what is dangerously delusional. The trumpets are the constant echo of a moral and spiritual reckoning, demonstrating that aggression based on false beliefs would inevitably lead to a bitter and chaotic collapse. With the gilded horn of war, we have the Mars squared Pluto in a sensitive degree. The Mars squared Pluto in the 10th house describes a cataclysmic career-ending reckoning born of the abuse of power. The square aspects here sitting in 90 degrees, specifically 90 degrees, creates a harsh confrontational dynamic, ensuring that the judgment feels like a brutal struggle. The 10th house governs career, public image, authority, providing an arena for the struggle that's leading to an epic total eclipse of the sun. The sensitive degree here is going to amplify the intensity, make the outcome acutely personal and profound, to say the least. The stage for this judgment is going to be the highest pinnacle of professional success and public acclaim, the 10th house. The conflict is a brutal clash between ambition, action, and anger, being Mars, and deep obsessive control and power and psychological warfare, Pluto. The square aspect ensures that this clash is not quiet or subtle at all, by any means, but a forceful, destructive confrontation. The trumpets are not merely an announcement. They are the sound of a public career and a carefully constructed legacy being torn apart in a very small amount of time. The 7 trumpets of judgment here, whereas the first is going to be the fall of the Iron Fist. If you recall in earlier videos, I was referencing the death of the Iron Witch. There is a common theme here with FE referencing iron. If you know, you know. The first trumpet blows and a brutal truth about the leader's exercise of power is revealed. It's kind of like exposing a corrupt judge, a corrupt politician, corrupt officials. These things are known to the public at this point. This is the wrath of Mars, fueled by the obsessive drive for control from Pluto, kind of like they probably should have stopped while they were ahead. Now, the hail and fire that falls upon the earth is going to be the public sphere. Sphere referencing geometry. This is public backlash against an authoritative figure whose power was always wielded with cruelty. A third of the trees, we'll call them, the professional network, and the green grass, public approval, are burned up. The judgment here is the unavoidable public condemnation of a toxic, domineering style of leadership. So, whereas we thought the grass might have been greener, it was doused in gasoline, not morning dew. The second trumpet, the burning mountains of ambition. The second blast is even more devastating. A great mountain burning with fire, again, is thrown into the sea of collective consciousness. This mountain here represents the leader's monumental burning ambition, which is the 10th house Mars, that was always rooted in destructive subterranean desires and for power and control, Pluto. It's kind of like wanting to be a puppeteer and pulling the strings, but not being intelligent enough to comprehend that you were the puppet that was always on the string. The act poisons the public's trust in a third of the sea creatures, if you will. The leader's support base, they die. Just cold turkey, heart attack, brain aneurysm, liver failure, kidney failure, lung issues, heart, like all kinds of heart problems. Just dead. A third of the ships, the institutions and projects associated with them are destroyed, sinking under the weight of the scandal and recrimination. The third trumpet here is going to be the Wormwood, again, poison legacy. This trumpet sounds with the bitter taste of a ruined legacy. The great star named Wormwood falls upon the public's perception of the leader poisoning the reputation. And reputations built on destructive natures will always be ruined, especially when ruining is a pastime. The 10th house governs legacy and the square to Pluto, ensuring this legacy is revealed to be rooted in power plays, corruption, and psychological manipulation. Got to make sure you fully drive people crazy so you can validate your false claims and forge documents. Now, the judgment here is the realization that the source of the leader's supposed success was a deep and bitter poison that destroyed all it touched. The fourth trumpet, the eclipse of the moral sun for this one. The fourth blast causes a dimming of all public light associated with the leader. The sun, the moon, and the stars, representing their authority, public approval, and celebrity status, are struck. Overnight, too. Rug pull. A third of their light is extinguished, casting their public image into the profound shadows, the ones that they run from and numb as to avoid. This judgment is a scandal so complete that it eclipses any past achievements and leaves this leader to face their darkness of public disgrace. The sensitive degree here amplifies this humiliation, ensuring the downfall strikes at the core of their identity, especially if there is a unsuccessful humiliation ritual attempt. That would suck. Imagine that backlash. The enduring echo of judgment here is going to be the final 3 trumpets, again representing the continued woe, woe, woe that hangs over the collapsed career. This judgment is not a clean severance, but a messy, ongoing, and transformative process. It's kind of like the linguistics law. We're moving towards a transparent, more productive, more feasible use of power and authority rather than destructive and forced approach. It's leading us into a direction of progress rather than perpetual decline. Now, it's a reminder that a relentless pursuit of power in the public sphere without a moral or ethical foundation will inevitably trigger a self-destructive karmic reckoning. The intensity of the moon, Mars-Pluto square, and the sensitivity of the degree ensures that the downfall is not only going to be public, but it's going to be psychologically devastating and eternally defining. There is no coming back from that at all. Oh, the planets are hilarious today. With the shattering sound, like broken glass, which reminds me, return all that bad energy if you're sending somebody to be dropping glass to send bad luck to try to retrieve good luck on somebody. Send it back to your family. With the Mars opposition Chiron, this is going to be the Trumpets of Judgment, where they are described as a calamitous confrontation where action is triggered by a deep existential wound, almost like a shotgun wound to the chest. The opposition creates a stark polarization, forcing a crisis where two powerful energies are in direct conflict, making avoidance impossible. It's like Jupiter and Saturn go in detriment rather than direct and retrograde. That's bad luck. This judgment is not a remote event, but a deeply personal, psychological, and often physical reckoning with an unhealed and projected trauma. The stage for this judgment is a battlefield of the psyche, where the assertive, aggressive energy of Mars, the warlike trumpet call, is met by the unbearable pain and shame of Chiron, the unhealed wound, on the opposite side. The opposition forces a showdown where a core hurt, often repressed or unacknowledged, directly confronts one's drive, courage, and ability to act. The trumpets sound not from an external force, but from an internal division that has reached a breaking point. The judgment is a purging of this deep-seated psychic poison. So it's like where if somebody's using puppets, voodoo, black magic, incantations, candle magic, spells, charms, hexes, any of that nature, misappropriating people's pictures, likeness, images, names, and or doing any kind of reversals onto their energy, or sending psychic attacks, if you will. Not only is it going to return sender, it's going to affect everyone in your group, and then bog you down and root to your bloodline for 1,000 years. Now, the 7 trumpets of judgment. The first here is going to be the roar of the righteous wound. The first trumpet is the roar of the wounded masculine or feminine principle. A person's assertiveness, being Mars, comes into direct conflict with the core wound of worthiness of existence. This could be triggered by a perceived slight that activates a lifetime of shame. The trumpet blast exposes the hypocrisy of either over-aggressive action or total inaction. The judgment here is the unavoidable realization that one's drive is compromised by an unhealed pain, or the inability to assert oneself stems from hidden wounds. Now, second trumpet, the projection onto the other. We're blocking that return entity immediately. Medusa's going to start presenting herself and stonewalling the hell out of everybody just because she is aggravated with the ongoing daily attempts. Now, the second blast sounds when the internal conflict is projected onto an external figure, often a partner or an opponent or an ex or a family member or a sibling or a cousin or a nephew or a son, whatever. In an attempt to avoid facing their own wounds, the individual with the opposition attacks or aggressively confronts Mars, a person who represents or triggers their pain. Even if it's somebody doing well, that could trigger somebody else, and they want to project their woe is me on other people. That's a terrible way to be, terrible mentality. The judgment is the destruction of the relationship or the escalation or the conflict to a point where the personal projection is finally unmasked and everybody can see it. The initial underlying trauma is revealed to be the source of the battle, whether it's jealousy, envy, especially if you're a diehard into Leviathan. Envy gets you nowhere. And now the bitter waters of the self-blame are coming through in the third trumpet. This trumpet is the absolute most bitter, as it involves the internalizing of blame. When the external battles fail to heal the wound, the individual turns their aggression inward. They hate themselves, they disrespect themselves, they have no self-respect for themselves, they don't respect the temple that is the body. Now, this wormwood is the self-punishment and caustic self-criticism that poisons one's sense of self. There's no introspection possible at that point. The judgment here is a period of intense self-doubt where one's drive and will to live are compromised by feelings of inadequacy and shame, leaving a bitter taste of regret that is difficult to purge. With the fourth trumpet, the eclipse of the warrior's spirit. The fourth blast comes in signaling the dimming of the warrior's spirit, the relentless cycle of acting out and retreating forces of a crisis of confidence. The sun, the moon, and the stars, the source of inner light and purpose, are momentarily eclipsed, and the warrior's path seems lost. The judgment is a period of paralysis. Hopelessness is accompanied with this also. This is where the individual is going to be stuck in the indecision symbolized by Hamlet, unable to take action even though he knew that action had to be taken. It's kind of like watching people approach you with a gun with the attempt to shoot you in the face and sitting there and accepting defeat. You should get up and run, but you don't. You sit there like a duck. Don't be the duck, be the swan. And if you're going to be a swan, be a black swan, because black swan events change entire systems and structures. Now, the echo here. The final three trumpets represent the ongoing woe, woe, woe. That is the painful but necessary integration of this opposition. For healing to begin, the individual must stop projecting the wound onto others and stop directing the aggression inward. This judgment is difficult. It's messy. It's a messy, messy, messy process of reconciling one's innate drive with one's deepest shame. The trumpets continue to sound until the individual finds a way to channel their assertive energy in a manner that acknowledges and integrates the pain, turning the unhealed wound into a source of wisdom and compassionate action or a creative venture. With numerological allegory 58, we have the component numbers. Now, number 5 is going to represent the trumpet of disruption and change. The number 5 here represents change, freedom, and radical upheaval. Radical upheaval is imperative. In this allegory, the trumpets of the number 5 blasts to signal a sudden, fundamental disruption of established order. This is a judgment upon stagnation, conformity, and complacency. Now, the first blast is a series of smaller, more personal blasts that disrupt individual routines and force people out of their comfort zones. It's kind of like setting the standard, setting the bar higher for other people to follow. The growing chaos of the Energy 5 escalates, creating a collective shift that challenges long-held traditions and beliefs, allowing people to view things from an alternative perspective and think outside of the box rather than following blindly. Now, the blast of freedom and adventure here, coming through always with that Lilith energy, wonderful energy to work with, if you can actually connect. Is also a judgment on a system that is no longer working. Now, the number 8 here, the trumpet of karma and reckoning. The number 8 symbolizes karma, balance, and reaping what has been sown. And harvest season is upon us, good or bad. When the trumpet of the number 8 sounds, it signals the final inescapable reckoning for past actions. The blast of consequence. Again, front door is a reference with being raided as an example. Due to following somebody who probably threw you under the bus. This is the sound of a universal accounting where every past action is weighed and judged. The restoration of balance comes in through judgment of 8. Restoring the balance is disrupted by number 5. It forces a karmic payment for the disruption, both good and bad. There's no such thing as good and bad, though, in my perspective, because everything is a lesson. There's always something to learn, no matter how bad or good something is. Everything is a teacher, if you allow it to be. Now, the echoes of debt, the trumpets of 8, are the inescapable consequences of ignoring the fundamental laws of cause and effect. One must not be in one energy. 2, to be 0, to represent infinity in duality. Now, to master number 13 here, coming in with 5 plus 8, 58. The trumpet of transformation and rebirth. The number 13 reduced to 4 represents transformation, death, and rebirth. In this allegory, the master trumpet of 13 blasts to herald not only destruction, but also the inevitable renewal that follows. This is the sound of total ending that clears the way for a new beginning. That was the day of 999. The final crescendo, the chaotic change of 5 and the karmic reckoning of 8 combine to the number 13 to create a final, overwhelming climax. The judgment as transformation is the destruction brought by the trumpets that is not for its own sake, but for the purpose of creating new and a better world, enhancing the quality of life for others, not just self. Now, the final note 4, 1 plus 3. The sound of the new foundation, when 13 is reduced to 4, represents stability, foundation, and a new order. The final gentle note of this trumpet signals the end of the judgment and the beginning of a new era. Building anew, the chaos and the destruction of the previous blast subside, and the collective is left to build a new world on a more solid and balanced foundation. I just walked this path. The lesson learned, the final echo of 4, is a reminder of the lessons learned during the judgment, and the foundation is built with a deeper wisdom gained from the experience. And what an experience it'll be. The allegorical narrative here is the judgment beginning with the first jarring blast of 5, which shakes the world from its slumber, forcing everyone to confront a new unfamiliar reality. The comfort of the old world is shattered, and a chaotic freedom is unleashed. As this chaos spreads, the inexorable trumpet of 8 begins to sound, and a great karmic reckoning begins. All who have abused their power, acted unjustly, or lived a life of deceit are forced to face the inescapable consequences of their actions. The two trumpets 5 and 8 clash and create the overwhelming crescendo of 13, which represents the utter destruction of the old world, Earth 2.0. This is quite literally the rapture. Only then can the gentle rebuilding tone of 4 be heard, signaling the foundation of a new world, one built on the wisdom of judgment that came before it. And beyond this, we enter the abyss with 0. 0 is a deeply philosophical exercise. Unlike other numbers which represent distinct qualities, 0 symbolizes the void, infinity, pure potential, and absolute nothingness. This is the vacuum which probability amplitude stems from in my omnikinetic beliefs and practices. The judgment here, represented by the trumpet of 0, is therefore not an external punishment, but a fundamental cosmic reset that erases all existing realities, synchronizing all parallel realities, and unifies all timelines into one, collapsing all other existences to create a more enhanced state of being. The story begins with the presumption of existence, a world filled with substance, defined by concepts and governed by rules. But the universe holds within it a deeper truth, that everything is but a manifestation from nothingness, probability amplitude, being the pseudo-photon operating within the oscillation chamber that is life. The trumpet of 0 sounds not to announce new law or specific punishment, but to declare the return to source, the ultimate reality. The trumpets here, with the first one, are going to be the erasure of false identity. The first blast of the trumpet of 0 is a soundless judgment that erases all labels, identities, and egos, strips you of everything you think you are. The things we use to define ourselves, our careers, social status, and personal histories, are revealed to be an illusion. The judgment is the complete and utter removal of all egoic scaffolding, leaving only the pure, unburdened potential that existed before birth. The second trumpet is going to be to collapse the material world. The second blast is more profound and an unsettling revelation. Jesus Christ, I can't talk right now. The trumpet of 0 reveals that the material world itself is a temporary manifestation. All physical forms, from stars to stones, are shown to be a part of a grand illusion. The judgment here is the complete and total erasure of the physical and a return to the start before the Big Bang existed. The third trumpet is going to be the void of the poisoned belief. This blast strikes the source of all beliefs, ideologies, and truths. Like wormwood, the poison of false doctrine is exposed by the ultimate truth of nothingness. The judgment is that the realization of every ideological and religious system created to explain the universe is a human construct built from dust. ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The rivers of sacred text and philosophical wisdom run bitter with the understanding that all systems are just temporary placeholders in the face of the ultimate void. The fourth trumpet is going to be the eclipse of time and purpose. This blast causes a total eclipse of all meaning, purpose, and time. The concept of linear time and the idea of progress are shown to be an illusion. The judgment is the overwhelming feeling that all humans striving for power, for love, for legacy is ultimately meaningless in the face of absolute nothingness. The light of ambition and the warmth of purpose are extinguished, leaving only the chilling, unmoving stillness of the eternal movement. The fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpets, the infinite potential here. The final three trumpets are not judgment and destruction, but of liberation. After the erasure of ego, the dissolution of matter, the poisoning of the belief, and the silencing of purpose, death. Perceived death. The true nature of zero is revealed. The fifth trumpet is the blast of infinite potential, where the void is shown to be a state of limitless potential. The sixth trumpet is the sound of creation, where the emptiness is proven to be the source from which everything arises. Nothing is everything is nothing, and everything and nothing come from the same source. The seventh trumpet is going to be the silent sound of enlightenment, where the judgment of nothingness turns into the profound peace of unconditional love and oneness within the cosmos. Now, the echo of this judgment is that zero is not about punishment. It's about surrendering to the ultimate truth of nothingness, an act that is both frightening and liberating. The trumpets here are the sound of the old world being swept away, leaving behind a blank slate upon which a new, more truthful reality can be written. New parameters, new frameworks, new variables, new transparencies. Now, the echo that remains is only going to be a lesson in humility, acceptance, and the knowledge that every ending is but a portal to a new beginning. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. I'll see you in the next one.